ஆரவமுதே எந்தன் அன்பே ரமணா, சீரார் தொழும் சீல திருவேணி ரமணா. வார்த்தை தோன்றியது உன் புகழை பாடிடவே, ஈர்க்கும் இசை வந்தது உன்னை போற்றி பாடிடவே. கருத்தில் நிறைந்த கருணை ஒளியே, கண்ணின் கருமணியே, ஆராவமுதே எந்தன் அன்பே ரமணா, சீரார் தொழும் சீல திருவேணி ரமணா. ஓம் நமோ பகவதே ஸ்ரீரமணாய.
Thank you, Ganesh. With this, we have come to the end of the morning session of the Arunachala Ashram group. Now we will hand it over to the Washington, D.C. group. Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya.
Thank you, Mohanji. Namo Ramana. Welcome everyone to the DC Satsang 74th Bhagavan's Aradhana celebration, where we gather to honor the luminous spirit of Sri Ramana Maharshi. Our program is a harmonious blend of readings and melodies that reflect the depth of his teachings. Let us embark on this sacred journey together. To start us off, Veeraraghavan Srinivasanji will grace us with excerpts from Mountain Path, a publication that illuminates the teachings of Sri Ramana Maharishi through insightful articles and reflections.
Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya. I'll be reading from Mountain Path, the article titled Exploring Yourself. Once upon a time, this is written by S. Madhusudanan. Once upon a time, in a town called Manomaya Kosham, lived a great wise man called Manolaya. He was well respected by everyone in the town. Many people used to come to him when they were in trouble to get solutions for their problems. His wisdom was so matchless that at times, even the mayor of the town used to consult him before making any decisions. He was always calm and always sweet. This made him feel proud, though outwardly he never showed it. Once in that village came a nomad man called Manonasana. He heard about his Manolaya and sat just opposite his home to observe him. He saw that many people were coming, meeting Manolaya day in and out. Manolaya also entertained them patiently by listening to their needs and giving his valuable suggestions, advice on the issues and problems that they faced. One day, a Sanskrit Pandit came with a text to clear his doubt from Manolaya. As Manolaya was a little busy with his work, the Sanskrit Pandit waited for him on the porch. While the Pandit was waiting, Manonasana started singing in pure Sanskrit. Aho manaha kimartam itastataha vismayamanatmani tishtati atmanaha anveshanam kuruta bhavantaha nyasyanti yat bhavantaha kim nyatum icchanti sma antaha gabhiram nimajjantu tada sarvam nyayate. These lines of the song attracted the Sanskrit Pandit, and he eventually went to Manonasana and asked him about the meaning of those lines. Manonasana smiled and said, "One who abides in the self will eventually know what is to be known," and sang again in a simple language for the Pandit to understand. "O my mind, Why wandering hither and thither to abide in the self? Explore the self. You will know what you wanted to be known. Dive deep within, then everything is known. After hearing the song again, the Sanskrit Pandit asked Manonasana, Revered sir, who are you? And why are you lying down here before the house of Manolaya for many days? Manonasana replied with a big smile and answered, What is the use of knowing about it? You find out who you are, you will know everything. And recited the line from Shankaracharya's Bhajagovindam. Samprapte sannihite kale nahi nahi rakshati dukran karane. Rules of grammar will not save you at the time of your death. This shocked the Sanskrit Pandit as he came to Manolaya only to clear his doubts on the grammar of the text. Meanwhile, Manolaya came out to the porch and saw that the Sanskrit Pandit was talking to Manonasana and was hearing their conversation from his porch. Manonasana continued, Is there any use of knowing non-essential things? Is it a wise thing to do? Not knowing what is to be known. Ponder over it and leave me alone now. The Sanskrit Pandit started pondering over it, did a salutation, pranam, and left Manonasana slowly. Seeing the Sanskrit Pandit going, Manolaya tried to call him, but the Sanskrit Pandit didn't even bother to see Manolaya and he left the place. Manolaya felt hurt about this, so he decided to confront Manonasana and went to him to ask, though he hesitated to do so for some time. Manolaya went to Manonasana and asked, Hey Nomad, I heard you saying to the Sanskrit Pandit, but I didn't understand what made him leave the place. What does it mean when you say, is it a wise thing to do, not knowing what is to be known? Manonasana laughed and said, O revered man of all in town, you are asking this question? Is it you who is asking this question? Manolaya felt a little embarrassed and thought to himself, Did I ask something wrong? Is it not the question to be asked? But couldn't figure out what Manonasana meant, as his ego was already hurt a little, and now it is hurt more. But still, he wanted to know what it was. So he humbled his ego a little and said, Yes, sir, consider me as your disciple and explain to me the same. Saying this, he eagerly waited for Manonasana to continue. Oh, you want to be my disciple? A man who is revered by all in the town and even by the mayor of the town wants to be the disciple of this nomad? Wow, am I hearing this? Manonasana said. Manolaya said, Yes, sir, it is me who is asking it. Manonasana said, Is this the way a disciple approaches a master without any reverence? Hearing this, Manolaya felt very hurt and ashamed of himself. Now his ego was broken completely and he fell at his feet as a sign of complete surrender. Many people who were around there at the time were astonished to see Manolaya doing such an act to a nomad, which normally people do to him. Manonasana lifted him with full compassion and love and asked him to sit. Then Manonasana said, Who is the master and who is the people? There is no master and there is no disciple. He continued, Do you know what is that one thing to be known by which everything is known? Have you ever pondered over it? Manolaya said, No, master, I do not know and also never pondered about it. Kindly throw some light for me to know what is that one thing which is to be known, by which everything is known. Manonasana smiled and said, O Manolaya, revered one, you said, I do not know and I never pondered over it. Who is that I, which you refer to? Your body or yourself? Explore yourself and know yourself. By knowing it, one knows everything. Thus saying, Manonasana blessed him and left the place. Now Manolaya started pondering over this and speaking to himself, I never thought about this. I assumed myself as a man with the greatest wisdom, assuming myself to be this body. I cannot be the body because this body is inert and perishable. I cannot be the mind because it constantly wanders with various thoughts. This leaves the question, who am I? The moment he put the question to himself, the cloud of ignorance vanished and he realized his self. Thoughts from the story and teachings of Bhagavan Sri Ramana Maharshi. The story, which happens in Manomaya Kosham town, is the mental sheath of our mind. Manolaya is a temporary stilling of the mind. Manonasana is Manonasa, which means the destruction of mind. Bhagavan Sri Ramana Maharshi stated that sadhakas, the seekers, rarely understand the difference between this temporary stilling of the mind, Manolaya, and permanent destruction of thoughts, Manonasa. In Manolaya, there is a temporary subsidence of thought waves, and though this temporary period may even last for 1,000 years, thoughts which are thus temporarily stilled rise up as soon as the Manolaya ceases. One must therefore watch one's spiritual progress carefully. One must not allow oneself to be overtaken by such spells of stillness of thought. The moment one experiences this, one must revive consciousness and inquire as to who it is who experiences this stillness. He further stated that the easy way, the direct way, the shortest cut to salvation is the inquiry method. By such inquiry, you will drive the thought force deeper till it reaches its source and merges therein. It is then that you will have the response from within and find that you rest there, destroying all thoughts once and for all. Bhagavan says that constant inquiry is the easiest and quickest way to realize the self. Therefore, let us follow Bhagavan's teachings to the core and realize the self within his blessings. Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya.
Thank you, Viraji. In the silence of the mountain, amidst the whispering trees, the presence of Bhagavan Ramana Maharshi resonates like an eternal hymn, guiding seekers back to their own divine essence. That leads us into our next participant, Skanda Bhaskar, who will enchant us with his rendition of Prapati Ashtakam, composed by Sri Jagadish Shastri, a soulful hymn invoking surrender to the divine.
Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya. Avartapuryam janitam prabhatye Pandesha deshe vihatam prabhatye Sonachala prastacharam prabhatye Vikshum tapaklesha saham prabhatye Ramanam prabhatye Brahma Kitanta Samam Prabhatye Chitari Satvarkamaham Prabhatye Sarvajnata Sarabridham Prabhatye Nisima Karunya Nidim Prabhatye Ramanam Prabhatye Asmat Prabancha Dadigam Prabhatye Vishwadikokte Vishayam Prabhatye Kalagraha Grahabaya Panutya Kritant Shiksha Kridinam Prabhatye Ramanam Prabhatye Vine Dumartim Vishayadvajanyam Vignaya Murtim Dadadam Prabhatye Kandarpadarpa Jwaravaranaya Kamari Leela Vadaram Prabhatye Ramanam Prabhatye Ajanmavarni Vridinam Prabhatye Kundi Pridam Dandadaram Prabhatye Brahmasmana Dhyana Radham Prabhatye Brahmatma भूयं यदिनं प्रपद्ये रमणं प्रपद्ये रमणं प्रपद्ये हरं प्रपद्ये विजरं प्रपद्ये स्वतन्त्रताया सदनं प्रपद्ये अमेयसामर्थ्यवहं प्रपद्ये विशुद्धविज्ञानी वरं प्रपद्ये रमणं प्रपद्ये रमणं प्रपद्ये दौर्भाग्यतापात्रयकर्ममोह सन्तापहन्तारमहं प्रपद्ये यथार्थसङ्कल्पमपेतपापम् अवाप्तकामं विशुचं प्रपद्ये रमणं प्रपद्ये रमणं प्रपद्ये मनःप्रसादं भजतां ददानं मुग्धास्मितोल्लासी मुखं प्रपद्ये यतामशेषं प्रपनीयमोद प्रदेन नाम्ना रमणं प्रपद्ये रमणं प्रपद्ये रमणं प्रपद्ये शिवं प्रपद्ये शिवदं प्रपद्ये गुरुं प्रपद्ये गुणिनं प्रपद्ये मदीयहृत्पद्मजुषं प्रपद्ये शरण्यमीशं शरणं प्रपद्ये रमणं प्रपद्ये रमणं प्रपद्ये प्रपत्तिं रमणशयितां तन्वतां तत्त्वदर्शिनः तक्रतुन्याय रसिका ततादृशा फलाप्तये रमणं प्रपद्ये रमणं प्रपद्ये रमणं प्रपद्ये रमणं प्रपद्ये रमणं प्रपद्ये रमणं प्रपद्ये ओम नमो भगवते श्री रमणाय।
Thank you, Skanda. I'm going to introduce our next participant, Nagabalaji Bhaskaranji. With reverence in his heart, he will offer his salutations to the divine with a devotional song, Unake Namaskaram, a heartfelt expression of devotion. Mr. Bhaskaranji, if you could please unmute your microphone.
It's a Naga, right? Naga. Or we can go to the next one until Naga joins.
Oh yeah, that's okay. We'll have Padma Priya ji captivate us with the soul-stirring melody Yarivar, a song that delves into the mysteries of existence and the quest for self-realization, and she will also be performing Shambho Mahadeva.
Yeah, we don't have the audio yet. Manu?
Yes. Padma Priya ji. Oh, Bhaskaran ji.
Yeah, I'm available now.
Okay, perfect. You can go ahead.
Sure. Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Arunachala Ramanaya. This is the Unake Namaskaram by Sri Sadhu Om Swami. Unake Namaskaram, Unake Namaskaram, Unmai Param Purule Ramana. மனக்கண் விளக்கிடும் அகக்கண்மணியே உனக்கே உனக்கே நமஸ்காரம். பார்க்கும் பொழுதெல்லாம் என்னுள் இருந்தவை பார்ப்பதோடென்னையும் பார்ப்பவனே. ஊக்கம் எனக் களித்துய்க்கும் ரமணா உனக்கே உனக்கே நமஸ்காரம். கேட்கும் பொழுதெல்லாம் என்னுள் இருந்தவை கேட்பதோடென் குரல் கேட்பவனே. ஊட்டம் அளித்தென்னை உய்க்கும் ரமணா உனக்கே உனக்கே நமஸ்காரம். முகரும் பொழுதெல்லாம் என்னுள் இருந்தவை முகர்வதோடென்னை முகர்பவனே. உகந்த பேரன்பினால் உய்க்கும் ரமணா உனக்கே உனக்கே நமஸ்காரம். சுவைக்கும் பொழுதெல்லாம் என்னுள் இருந்தவை சுவைப்பதோடென்னை சுவைப்பவனே. உவக்கும் கருணையா உய்க்கும் ரமணா உனக்கே உனக்கே நமஸ்காரம். தொட்டிடும் போதெல்லாம் என்னுள் இருந்தவை தொட்டறிந்தென்னை தொடுபவனே. உட்பலம் மீந்தென்னை உய்க்கும் ரமணா உனக்கே உனக்கே நமஸ்காரம். எண்ணுவதெல்லாம் அறிந்தென்னுள் என்னவோர் எண்ணமில்லாதென்னை எண்ணுவனே. உண்ணுவதென்னை உகந்த ரமணா உனக்கே உனக்கே நமஸ்காரம். அறிபவையாவும் அறிந்தன்னகத்தென்னை அறிந்தவாறென்றும் அமர்பவனே. உருந்துயரின்றியே உய்க்கும் ரமணா உனக்கே உனக்கே நமஸ்காரம். தூங்கும் பொழுதுன் என் தூக்கம் காணவும் என் தோற்றமும் கண்டு துளங்குவனே. ஓங்கும் அறிவொளி உய்க்கும் ரமணா உனக்கே உனக்கே நமஸ்காரம். மாயும் உடலகம் மாயம் அழித்தென்னை வாழ்வித்து நான் என வாழ்பவனே. ஓயும் படிக்கென்னை உண்ணும் ரமணா உனக்கே உனக்கே நமஸ்காரம். எல்லா பொழுதிலும் எல்லா இடத்திலும் எல்லாமாய் என்னுள் இருப்பவனே. உல்லாசமாய் உலாவும் ரமணா உனக்கே உனக்கே நமஸ்காரம். உனக்கே உனக்கே நமஸ்காரம். உனக்கே உனக்கே நமஸ்காரம். Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Arunachala Ramanaya. Thank you.
Thank you, Bhaskaran ji. Next up, we have Padma Priya ji, who will captivate us with the soul-stirring melody, Yad Arivad, a song that delves into the mysteries of existence and the quest for self-realization, and she will also be singing Shambho Mahadeva.
Namaskaram everyone. Hope you're able to hear now. Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya. First I'll be singing Shambho Mahadeva set in the Ragam Panturali. Shambho Mahadeva, Shambho Mahadeva, Shambho Mahadeva, Shambho Mahadeva, Shankara Girijaramana, Shambho Mahadeva, Shankara Girijaramana, Shambho. शम्भो महादेव शरणागत जनरक्षक शम्भो महादेव शरणागत जनरक्षक अम्बोरुह लोचन पादाम्बुज भक्तिं देहि अम्बोरुह लोचन पादाम्बुज भक्तिं देहि शम्भो महादेव शङ्कर गिरिजारमण शम्भो परमदयाकर मृगधर दर गंगाधर धरणी परमदयाकर मृगधर धर गंगाधर धरणी धरभूषण त्यागराज वरहृदय निवेश परमदयाकर मृगधर धर गंगाधर धरणी धरभूषण त्यागराज वरहृदय निवेश सुरबृन्द किरीटमणि वरनीरा जितपद गोपुर वास सुन्दरेश गिरीश परात् भवभयहर गोपुर वास सुन्दरेश गिरीश परात् भवभयहर शम्भो महादेव शङ्कर गिरिजारमण शम्भो The next song, the next kirtana that I'm going to be singing is set in Ragam Charukesi. It's written by Sri Janaki Mata and tuned by Srimati Maithili Kannan. It's called Yar Arivar. Aragamai அருந்தவ புதல்வா அழகம்மை அருந்தவ புதல்வா அளவிட முடியாத மகிமை உள்ளோனே அழகமை ஈன்ற அருந்தவ புதல்வா அளவிட முடியாத மகிமை உள்ளோனே யார் அறிவார் உந்தன் மகிமை யார் அறிவார் உந்தன் மகிமை எனதையனே மெய்யருள் செய்யும் ரமணையனே யார் அறிவார் உந்தன் மகிமை எனதையனே மெய்யருள் செய்யும் யார் அறிவார் உந்தன் மகிமை எனதையனே மெய்யருள் செய்யும் ராமணையனே யார் அறிவார் உந்தன் மகிமை எனதையனே மெய்யருள் செய்யும் ராமணையனே யார் அறிவார் உந்தன் மகிமை மகிமை பக்தர்களை காக்கும் பக்தர்களை காக்கும் பரமபதம் தன்னை விட்டு பரிவுடன் வந்துதித்த பரம கருணாமூர்த்தே பக்தர்களை காக்கும் பரமபதம் தன்னை விட்டு பரிவுடன் வந்துதித்த பரம கருணாமூர்த்தே பக்தர்களை காக்கும் பரமபதம் தன்னை விட்டு பரிவுடன் வந்துதித்த பரம கருணா மூர்த்தே யார் அறிவார் உந்தன் மகிமை எனதையனே மெய்யருள் செய்யும் ராமணையனே யார் அறிவார் உந்தன் மகிமை அருணாத்ரிநாதனின் அபேத ஸ்வரூபா அருணாத்ரிநாதனின் அபேத ஸ்வரூபா ஆனந்த நிலைய அனுகிரக பாவா அருணாத்ரிநாதனின் அபேத ஸ்வரூபா ஆனந்த நிலைய அனுகிரக பாவா எந்த நேரத்திலும் உந்தன் அடிகளை சிந்தனை செய்திடும் ஜானகி போதா எந்த நேரத்திலும் உந்தன் அடிகளை சிந்தனை செய்திடும் ஜானகி போதா எந்த நேரத்திலும் உந்தன் அடிகளை சிந்தனை செய்திடும் ஜானகி போதா யார் அறிவார் உந்தன் மகிமை எனதையனே மெய்யருள் செய்யும் ராமணையனே யார் அறிவார் உந்தன் மகிமை மகிமை ஓம் நமோ பகவதே ஸ்ரீ ரமணாய.
Thank you, Padma Priya ji. In the midst of life's tumultuous dance, the call of the divine echoes across through the ages, inviting all to surrender at the feet of the eternal. And this segues perfectly into our next participant, Geeta Agarwal ji, who will delve into the essence of a devotion as elucidated in Maha Yoga by Lakshmana Sarma, guiding us on the path of spiritual devotion and surrender.
Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya. The reading today is from Maha Yoga by K. Lakshmana Sarma. Maha Yoga is a profound exposition of Bhagavan Sri Ramana Maharshi's teaching as a result of the author's close association with the sage for more than 20 years. Excerpts from chapter 11 titled Devotion. From the testimony of the sages, we understand that the direct and immediate means of winning deliverance is the quest of the real self, by turning the mind away from the world, that is, from everything that can be objectified, towards the self in the heart. But we find that this is not easy because in the mind, there are attachments to objects, gross or subtle, and habits of thought, which are mostly latent, but spring into feverish activity one after another and pull the mind back to the world. These are mental taints, which are called vasanas, because they have been acquired by intimate contact with objects and linger in the mind, like the smell of the contents that lingers in a pot after it is emptied. Because these smells of things are more in some than in others, there is a great difference between one disciple and another. The sage tells us that disciples are of 4 grades, comparable to gunpowder, dry charcoal, ordinary fuel, and wet fuel. The first kind of disciple needs only a word, like a spark, to consume his ignorance at once. The second kind needs some teaching and personal effort. The third kind needs a long course of teaching, training, and practice. The fourth kind needs to be made fit for discipleship by practices suitable to his condition. Hence, most disciples would need to persevere in the quest for a long time before they could become confident of winning ultimate success. Many might become discouraged and be inclined to give up the enterprise. What are these disciples to do so that they may be able to make some steady progress towards the goal? The answer is they must practice devotion to God. It is said of devotion in the Gita, chapter 9, that even men of evil life are benefited by it. They become good very soon and finally reach the state of unending peace, the egoless state. The Gita lays great stress on truth and goodness. The seeker must have what it calls the godly endowment in order to reach the goal. This includes fearlessness, clear thinking, meditativeness, readiness to give, control of mind and body, reverence to whatever is holy, love of truth, straightforwardness, non-injury, forbearance, not telling tales, compassion, freedom from greed, gentleness, shrinking from wrongdoing, not being capricious. All this may be summed up as good character. They are the aroma of the real self that dwells in our hearts. Therefore, they make for impersonality. To them belong the persons, not they to the persons. For goodness is not a possession, it is the possessor. According to the sage, so long as there is division, vibhakti, there must be devotion, bhakti. So long as there is separation, viyoga, there must be a method of reunion, yoga. So long as there is duality, there will also be God and devotee. In the quest of the truth also, there is duality till the source is reached. When God is one, there is no more duality, nor is he different even now. For God is thought in and by the self, which proves that he is really one with the self. If one that is told to have devotion to God straightway does so without further question, it is all right. He will automatically become one with God in due course. Such a one is the ripe one. But there is another kind of man who turns around and says, there are two, God and I. Before knowing God who is far off, let me know the one closer one, myself. For him, the quest is prescribed. Really, devotion and the quest are the same. On another occasion, the sage said to someone, God is as real as you are. There is therefore no real inconsistency between the truth of God as revealed by the sages, which is the absolute truth of his being, and the personality of God for the purposes of devotion. For the devotee dwells, at least in the beginning, in the region of relativity. Because God is really the indwelling real self of the devotees, therefore he is the source of what is called grace. And this is so both for those that know that he is the real self and for those that know it not. The practical implications of grace are very important. Therefore, almost all the religions lay great stress on it. If there be no such thing as grace, then deliverance would never be possible, for the utmost efforts of finite beings can never produce an infinite result. The devotee calls it grace, while the philosopher calls it the power of the truth that vanquishes untruth. A theoretical knowledge of the truth of non-duality, far from being a bar to devotion, is actually a great aid to it. Convinced non-dualists have been sincere and ardent devotees. Great saints have had the experience of the unity of God and the self, and that has not destroyed their devotion. On the contrary, their devotion has been intensified, because whereas formerly their love was divided between two, namely their own self and God, now there remains only one on whom all their love is lavished. Sages have composed hymns to God as if he were a person, and these hymns are intensely devotional, though they also give expression in the hymns to the truth of unity, thereby showing that there is no practical incompatibility between that truth and devotion. The greatness of God as God is in relativity, in Maya, but the nature of God as the self is the absolute truth beyond Maya. The aim of the devotee is to establish a personal relation with God, to see him in visions, to speak to and be spoken to by him, and so on. And sometimes he gets his wish and is therefore much elated, but the visions fade away and then he is much depressed. The sage of Arunachala tells us that the forms of God seen in these visions are purely mental, not real. Therefore, they do not last. He says that so long as even a trace of egoism is left, there can be no seeing of God as he really is. Seeing him as he really is no other than abiding in the egoless state, which the devotee ultimately wins through God's grace. There is therefore not the least difference in respect of the final goal between the devotee and the seeker of the real self. The call of the real self comes to the lover of the truth in one form, and to the lover of God, the devotee, in another form. That is all the difference. Grace, we learn, has three states. In the first stage, the ultimate truth appears as God, who is far away and unapproachable. By devotion to God, the second stage is reached when God comes near as Guru, the sage that tells of the real self, and then devotion to him takes the place of devotion to God. This devotion leads up to the manifestation of the highest grace, the experience of the real self in the egoless state, the third and last stage. The sage was asked by someone what he should do to deserve grace. The sage answered, "Are you asking this question without grace? Grace is in the beginning, the middle, and the end, for grace is the self. But because of ignorance of the self, it is expected to come from somewhere outside of you." What is true self-surrender is explained by the sage as follows. All that one needs to do is to surrender oneself to the source of oneself. There is no need to get confused by calling that source God and assuming that it is somewhere outside. One's source is within oneself. To that source, the surrender should be made. That is, one should seek that source and by the very force of that search, merge into it. The question, where is the source, can arise only if it be thought that the self is different from the source. If the ego becomes merged into its source, then there is no ego, no individual soul. That is, the seeker becomes one with the source. That being the case, where is surrendering? Who is to surrender and to whom? And what is there to be surrendered? This loss of individuality, which even now does not really exist, is devotion, wisdom, and the quest. A practical hint about the true nature of self-surrender was once given by the sage to a young man who came to him in a disordered state of mind. He believed he had had a vision of God in which he was promised great things if he surrendered himself. He said he had done so, but that God failed to carry out his promise, and he demanded of the sage, "Show me God, and I shall chop off his head, or let him chop off my head." The sage asked someone to read from a Tamil commentary on his own writings, and then made this remark: "If the surrender be real, then who is there remaining able to question God's doing?" The young man's eyes were opened. He acknowledged that it was his own mistake and went away pacified. Self-surrender must be without reservations and without conditions. There is no room in it for bargaining. The common notion of self-surrender, that it is a gift of oneself to God, is declared by the sage to be a mistaken one. He says the offering of oneself to God is similar to the offering to a Ganesh figure made of jaggery, of a portion of jaggery taken from the figure itself, for there is no individual self apart from him. This shows that the notion is an act of theft, and it is a continuing theft. What is really meant by the term self-surrender is just the cessation of this theft by the recognition by the devotee that he himself has no separate existence. The practical outcome of self-surrender is indirectly expressed by the sage as follows. Since God himself is bearing the whole burden of the world, the unreal soul that tries to carry the burden is just like the caryatid figure sculptured at the base of a temple tower, appearing to sustain the tower on its shoulders. If one traveling by a conveyance that can carry heavy loads keeps his luggage on his own head and thus suffers pain, who is to blame for it? Here two similes are employed. By the first simile, we are reminded that the so-called individual soul has no consciousness of its own, and therefore does not really bear the burdens of life, which are borne by God alone. By the second simile, we are shown that he that will not surrender himself to God's grace has to suffer worries without end, while the devotee that cultivates the attitude of surrender is free from cares and therefore happy even now. Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya. Jai Sadguru.
Thank you, Geeta ji. In the depths of devotion, the ego dissolves like dew in the morning sun, revealing the boundless expanse of the heart where the self resides. Next, Brinda Sharma ji will uplift our spirits with the soulful rendition of Ramana Bhagavan Arul, a Tamil song composed by Sadhu Om, honoring the grace of Bhagavan Ramana.
Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya Namah. Ramana Bhagavan Arulai Nambine. Ramana Bhagavan Arulai Nambine. Ramana Bhagavan Arulai Nambine. Ramana Bhagavan Arulai Nambine. Kamala Nayana Karunai Ramana. Kamala Nayana Karunai Ramana. Kamala Nayana Karunai Ramana. Kama Krodha Moha ரமண பகவான் அருளை நம்பினேன் ரமண பகவான் அருளை நம்பினேன் ரமண பகவான் அருளை நம்பினேன் அகமகமெனும் சுகஸ்புரணமே அகமகமெனும் சுகஸ்புரணமே அனுபவமேதோ அதை அருளவே அகமகமெனும் சுகஸ்புரணமே அனுபவமேதோ அதை அருளவே பகலிரவில்லா பரம வெளியே பகலிரவில்லா பரம வெளியே பகலிரவில்லா பரம வெளியே பானு கோடி கோடி தானுமினையில்ல பானு கோடி கோடி தானுமினையில்ல ரமண பகவான் அருளை நம்பினேன் ரமண பகவான் அருளை நம்பினேன் ரமண பகவான் அருளை நம்பினேன் எவரும் அயலார் இல்லை என்னும் விதம் எவரும் அயலார் இல்லை என்னும் விதம் இருமையறவே இதயமுறவே எவரும் அயலார் இல்லை என்னும் விதம் இருமையறவே இதயமுறவே சிவமயமிதே அனுபவமதாய் சிவமயமிதே அனுபவமதாய் சிவமயமிதே அனுபவமயதாய் தின நானுமெய்தி திறமடையவே தின நானுமெய்தி திறமடையவே ரமண பகவான் அருளை நம்பினேன் ரமண பகவான் அருளை நம்பினேன் ரமண பகவான் அருளை நம்பினேன் அருணமலையை அகலவியலா அருணமலையை அகலவியலா பிரிய முறவே பிறவியறவே அருணமலையை அகலவியலா பிரிய முறவே பிறவியறவே திருவருளினார் திகழறிவினார் திருவருளினார் திகழறிவினார் திருவருளினார் திகழறிவினார் தேகநாகம் கோகம் சோகமாகவே தேகநாகம் கோகம் சோகமாகவே ரமண பகவான் அருளை நம்பினேன் ரமண பகவான் அருளை நம்பினேன் ரமண பகவான் அருளை நம்பினேன் ஓம் நமோ ஸ்ரீ மகாதே ரமணாய நமः.
Thank you, Brinda ji. Next, Padma Shri Veera Raghavan ji will mesmerize us with the devotional composition Ramana Desikam by Shri Kavya Kanta Ganapati Muni, paying homage to the spiritual legacy of Shri Ramana Maharshi, and she will also be performing Guru Vanakam by Swami Maitreya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Shri Ramanaya. Guru Vanakkam by Swami Maitreya on Bhagavan. பொன் போன்ற நீ உணர்வை உணர்த்துவித்த குருவே என் பொய் போக்கி புலன் தடுத்து மெய் போதமருள் தெளிவே பொன் போன்ற மெய் உணர்வை உணர்த்துவித்த குருவே என் பொய் போக்கி புலன் தடுத்து மெய் போதமருள் தெளிவே அல்லலரும் ஆனந்தத்தில் மூழ்கச் செய்யும் நிறைவே என் நிலையை மெய்நிலையாய் ஏற்றுவித்த பரம்பொருளே அல்லலரும் ஆனந்தத்தில் மூழ்க செய்யும் நிறைவே என் நிலையை மெய்நிலையாய் ஏற்றுவித்த பரம்பொருளே பவம் போக்கி அருள் புரிந்த ஸ்ரீ அருணாச்சல குரு ரமணம் சரணடைந்தேன் நின் பாதம் மலரடிகள் சரணம் பவம் போக்கி அருள் புரிந்த ஸ்ரீ அருணாச்சல குரு ரமணம் சரணடைந்தேன் நின் பாதம் மலரடிகள் சரணம் ஸ்ரீ அருணாச்சல குரு ரமணம் பொன்மலரடிகள் சரணம் ஸ்ரீ அருணாச்சல குரு ரமணம் பொன்மலரடிகள் சரணம் பொன்மலரடிகள் சரணம் பொன்மலரடிகள் சரணம். ரமண தேசிகம் by Sri Kavyakanta Ganapati Muni. ஏகமேவ ஹ்ருதி சந்ததம் சகல நாம ரூப குணவர்ஜிதம் பாவஹீனம் இவ அத்புதம் மனசி பாவயே ரமண தேசிகம் சத்வபுத்தி பலதாயகம் சகல சித்தமோக பவநாசகம் ஞானமோதகரம் ஈஸ்வரம் மனசி பாவயே ரமண தேசிகம் மோகமித்தமிக சந்ததம் நிஷித சித்தமூல பரிமாக்னிகம் சம்விதேகரண ரூபிணம் மனசி பாவயே ரமண தேசிகம் வேதசார பரிமார்விதம் சகல யோக சித்த சுமபூஜிதம் தத்வரூபமயி பாசதே மனசி பாவயே ரமண தேசிகம் चित्तशान्तिदमदायकं जडिति आत्मतत्परसबोधकम् ईशरूपमयि भासते मनसि भावये रमण देशिकम् पञ्चकोश परिवेष्टितं विषय पञ्च सर्प विषभेषजम् पञ्चभान फलनाशकं मनसि भावये रमण देशिकम् तत्सत्येव भुवि साम्प्रदं रुचिरमर्त्यरूपमयि धारयम् दृश्यते सकलयोगिनं मनसि भावये रमणदेशिकम् मौनतत्परसबोधकं रहसि मोदमान वपुषं परम् मानरोषरिबुदाहकं मनसि भावये रमणदेशिकम् काव्यकण्टकविसूरिण स्तुतिभिर्येषसूनुरिति घोषितम् शोणशैलतटवासिनं मनसि भावये रमणदेशिकम् भासते हृदयमण्डले महितबोधभानुरिह साम्प्रदम् मोगरूपघनमाचते मनसि भावये रमणदेशिकम् मनसि भावये रमणदेशिकम् मनसि भावये रमणदेशिकम् ओम नमो भगवते श्री रमणाय.
Thank you, Padmaji. In the melody of devotion, the mind finds solace, and the heart opens like a flower to receive the grace of the Guru. Lastly, we have Malati Bhaskarji, who will grace us with her profound insights as she delves deep into the teachings of Sri Ramana Maharshi, guiding us on the path of self-inquiry and realization.
Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya. I am going to read from the collected works of Sri Ramana Maharshi. Vichara Manimala. I am that Brahman which is bliss, which is eternal, all-pervasive, the names and forms which is not cognized by the impure intellect, but is cognized by the pure intellect, stainless and boundless. That is to say, which one discards the jiva of the form of ego sense, which is the apparent meaning of word I, which remains merely as affluent and conscious Atman, which is implied meaning of the word I, is Brahman. This can also be understood from the following words of Aranagriya's experience after swallowing me, who had the form of ego, the supreme being remained as mere self. Disciple. Swami, what are the means of putting an end to the miseries of samsara like birth and death and of attaining supreme bliss? Guru. O disciple, what a delusion. You are always of the nature of bliss. There is not the least trace of the mysteries of samsara in you. Therefore, do not take upon yourself the mysteries of birth, etc. You are the conscious Brahman, which is free from birth and death. Disciple. Is not liberation the sensation of misery and the attainment of supreme bliss? If I am already of the nature of bliss, how is it possible for me to attain the bliss which is already attained, and similarly to get rid of the misery which never existed? Guru. This is possible just as one can seek and find a bracelet which was on one's arm all the time, but which one had forgotten about, and on finding it, look upon it as a new acquisition. It is possible as in the case of the serpent, which at no time present in the rope was mistaken for one, but which seemed to be there and seems to disappear when one discovers that it is only a piece of rope. Disciple. Will the non-existence of misery and the existence of bliss coexist in one and the same state of liberation? Guru. They will. Just as the non-existence of the imagined serpent is the existence of the rope, the non-existence of the imagined misery is the existence of bliss. Disciple. As bliss arises only from contact with objects, how can I be said to be of the nature of bliss? Guru, the bliss of the self will not be felt in the intellect which is distracted by desires for objects by one who does not know the self. When the object of desire is obtained by the intellect, becomes steady for a moment and then turns inward. Then the bliss of the self is reflected in it, and this gives rise to a delusion that there was bliss in the object. But when other objects are desired, this bliss vanishes. It is similar to the bliss which one experiences on arrival of one's son from a foreign country. It does not last as long as the object which seemed to be the cause of it. Further, bliss is experienced in the state of samadhi and deep sleep, even without objects. Therefore, there is no bliss in objects. The self alone is bliss. It is because the bliss of the self alone is experienced by all that all are proclaimed by the Vedas to be of the form of bliss. Disciple, but does the sage, Jnani, who knows the self-desire objects and experience bliss, or does he not? Guru, although he may desire objects and experience bliss like the ignorant person, he does not imagine that bliss to be any different from the bliss of the self. Disciple, when the misery of birth and death, etc., is actually experienced, how can it be said that it never exists in me? Guru, know that the world of birth and death, etc., is illusionary appearance like the serpent in the rope and blueness in the sky, or like dreams, due to your ignorance of yourself, which is Brahman. Disciple, what is support for this extensive world? Guru, just as the rope is the support and the basis for the delusive serpent which appears when the rope is not recognized as such, you are the support and basis for the world which appears when you do not know yourself. Disciple, kindly explain distinctly the ideas of support and the basis. Guru, even in the unreal serpent, there is a concept, this, which is mixed up with a general concept, this, underlying the rope. Similarly, in the unreal world, there is a concept, it exists, which is mixed up with the general concept of existence underlying the self. This existence is the support of the world. Again, just as there is the particular concept rope, there is also the particular concept of the self, namely that it is unattached, immutable, ever liberated, all pervasive, etc. This is not cognized at the time of delusion, but when cognized, removes the delusion. This particular concept of self is the basis of the world. Disciple, corresponding to the seer who is separate from the rope, which is the support and the basis of the serpent. Who is the seer apart from me? Who is the support and the basis of the world? Guru, if the basis is insentient, a separate seer is necessary. If the basis is sentient, it will itself be the seer, just as the witnessing consciousness, which is the basis of the dream, is itself the seer of the dream. You are yourself the seer of the world. Disciple, if the world of the waking state comes into existence and falsely appears like dreams through nescience, why should we speak of any distinction between the waking state and the dream state and say that the waking state has relative reality while the dream state has only personal reality? Guru, since a dream appears without the help of appropriate time, space, and materials on account, accompanied by the defect, dosham of sleep, it is spoken of as a personal